I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to one of our co-presenters today. Heather, come on aboard.
Hey, Emma, thank you so much.
Of course.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Both Chris and I are super excited. In fact, Chris, why don't you come on in? Let me introduce you also. My name's Heather Mueller. I'm the Vice President for Enrollment Strategies here at Capture. I've had a long career in higher education, both in the seat and on the other side of the desk here at Capture and others. But mostly I am excited to introduce you all. Many of you may know him already from his former life before Capture, but we're pumped to have Chris Harris join us as our Senior Enrollment Strategist and lead presenter in today's CaptureCast. Chris, say hi to the crew.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining in. It's a pleasure to be here and sitting on the other side of the desk. But as today, the landscape of higher education continues to change in a rapidly moving environment. And one of the things that we hope to do is pay special attention, not to only what we're doing for 2021, but we need to start to make that pivot to the spring and the fall of 2022. So late in July, early August, where we are right now, is a good time to make that pivot and start to create meaningful connections with the right students as they begin their enrollment journey. It's our hope in this webinar that we give you some insight, but also reinforce the need for college university enrollment managers to listen to what their prospective students are saying. So again, I'm really excited to be here. Let's kind of jump into today's agenda because we do have a limited amount of time. Today we're going to talk a little bit about, Heather's going to give us a background about Capture Higher Ed, who we are, what we do. Then we'll get back into the meat of it with communicating with Gen Z, something that we're all near and dear to our hearts. What can counselors do right now to affect their future enrollment for the spring and the fall? Using your student ambassadors as brand ambassadors. We're going to take questions and answers, and then we'll give you a preview of what's going to happen to the next CaptureCast later on in August.
Awesome. So let's get started. Obviously, we are sponsoring this CaptureCast with Chris at the helm. Thank you for joining us once again. For Capture Higher Ed, who are we? For those of you who are not familiar with the company, we're a recruitment marketing firm that truly believes in making every interaction count. So we help institutions across the United States with their enrollment advancement operations, creating marketing and recruitment moments that are personalized and data-driven, timely and measured, and creating connections between institutions and the students that they are recruiting. All of this is managed by our team of experts. We have an incredible group of individuals that work with our partners every day, and it is all powered by our behavioral intelligence platform that provides incredible insights about what students and their families are thinking about today in the context of what they're likely to do tomorrow. So as we think about what we do on a day-to-day with every institution, we help institutions here in the higher education recruitment space identify, convert, and ultimately enroll more of the right students. How do we do this in a way that's different than many, many different companies that are out there helping institutions? First is our behavioral intelligence. That's that notion of what our platform brings into the market, and that's understanding truly behavioral data, or what students and their families are doing right now and thinking about right now, looped in with predictive analytics, so helping you understand what they're likely to do in the future. We're constantly innovating, and our platform, I truly believe, represents and is one of the most incredible innovations that we've had over the last decade. We are focused on data and results. It's incredibly important for our company to make sure that our partners feel secure in the fact that they know what's happening with every campaign, with every interaction that we are having with their prospective students on their behalf. So real-time dashboarding, transparency and accountability in that relationship. And last but certainly not least, that team of experts, enrollment, marketing, and data experts that work with our partners every day. But enough about us. Chris, folks came to hear more about how we should be communicating with inquiries, particularly those Gen Z students. So why don't we hop in and start talking about the Gen Z students that we know and love.
Thanks, Heather. I appreciate it. let's talk about Gen Z for a second. And one thing we have to kind of remind ourselves every day, and in this environment, is that they are digital natives. They have always been connected and have always been able to access information instantly on the web. They've always been able to pick up their phone. They've always had a computer, a laptop, or a tablet. But they're entrepreneurial in spirit, and they're remarkably diverse, not only by race, but by their thoughts as well. They communicate more through their screens more than they do than any other generation before them. So, but they are also consuming most of their content on the web, but more specifically on the mobile web. So one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that we have to be authentic in our messaging, which is important to Gen Z. Their entire lives, they have read from textbooks and websites that are very concise and to the point with their language. Gen Z is looking for and responding to authentic, real-life copy in digital media where they can feel that they're experiencing what is happening on your campus. So you have to ask your question to yourself every day. Does your web, does your digital assets, and do your print materials tell your story? Or is it just the facts? One tip that we have for you is that you want to make sure that your content and your emails and anything that's served digitally in displays can be personalized to fit the prospective students' wants and their needs at that time. The one thing, again, Gen Z is they're into that instant gratification. They push some buttons, things happen, they get the story right away. So be sure that your imagery is reflective and sincere as well. The value proposition of any institution is crucial, not only recruitment success, but overall enrollment success. Got to remember, Gen Z prospective students want to know what your institution is all about and how they will fit into the mission and vision of your institution. So again, ask your question to yourself. Does your value proposition permeate through your campus? Does everyone on campus know the value proposition that you have so that it can be communicated effectively and efficiently? Make sure that your faculty and your staff and your current students are reminded of the value of the education that they are teaching, that they are supporting, and that they are receiving every day. By putting posters up on campus, having discussions during faculty and staff and services, it can be a really suitable place to give you that information to make sure that everybody is saying the same thing about your value proposition. And we would be remiss if we didn't talk about cost and financial aid, right? So cost and financial transparency is one of the leading indicators Gen Z uses when they're deciding on where to enroll. They are most worried about debt, long-term debt, more than any generation before them. So it's imperative that we provide the right information at the right time. So as you're reviewing your website, make sure that your website, your digital messaging, and print materials provide up-to-date cost and financial aid information. If you're able to set your tuition and fees, room and board early in the cycle, June, July, August, September, before financial aid starts to roll out in October, you are way ahead of the game. A level of transparency with families helps them understand the cost of attendance. So also make sure that you provide your scholarship matrix on your website and have several real-life examples of financial aid awards of current students who are at various levels of need in academic history on your website. There's nothing better than to show what it is that you're providing to your prospective students at this point. And ensure that when families come to campus, or if they join you virtually for a virtual campus visit, that they have an opportunity to meet with your financial aid professionals on your campus to discuss their specific needs and questions. So it's really, really important that you are transparent in everything you do with your financial aid. So we talk about the right content is delivered at the right time to Gen Z. So we're going to talk about number 4 here, maximize engagement. They've grown up in an instant information world where everything is open 24 hours a day. There's no different for your website and your digital assets. Your ability to deliver the right message to the right student at the right time can make or break whether you enroll that student or not. So do you have the capability to engage with students with targeted content when you're on your website or interacting with you in a digital asset? Are you able to capture the behavior and then provide the necessary information they need and want in a timely manner? Because it might not be during the time that you're sitting in the office or when your chatbot is available to field some questions. So our tip is having the ability to assess, understand, and maximize your engagement with your their family is crucial moving then forward in the enrollment process. Use a platform that can identify those students so you can be savvy in what you're messaging.
Chris, I've had the great privilege of watching multiple generations of prospective students come in and out of our colleges and universities. What is very interesting to me about the Gen Z population, and you mentioned it, right? Not only is it instant gratification, which they're not the first generation that we've worked with that has had that kind of fast food mentality with service and access, but I believe that this generation, right, and everything that I've read, everything that we've talked about together, it is not just about instant gratification. It needs to be in their time when they want it, and they want it to be real. They understand that they're being marketed to, right? This has been part of their consumer life since they picked up their first iPhone or their first tablet. But truly, being in that mobile environment and knowing when we're just pushing marketing messages and when we're telling our story to them and sharing it with them, I think is a critical difference in what we're seeing in those Gen Zers. So let's talk a little bit, Chris, about strategies in thinking about how to make this student group, these inquiries that we're cultivating right now for 22, for 23, how do we help them see themselves at our institution?
Well, I think one of the things, Heather, and we'll talk about it, is to your point that it's kind of an instant gratification kind of thing. They want to see the real message, and they want to feel that the messages are authentic and that they really see themselves on your campus. So you have to really ensure that the messaging is relevant and timely as you're putting it out there. Every year, we all go through an annual review and update the processes for recruitment. So we review our view books and our website and the digital strategies and stuff like that. But knowing that our prospective students demand authenticity, we need to ensure that the student experience and perspective shines through in our content. One thing that we suggest is that you bring your student ambassadors together. We're going to talk about student ambassadors a little bit more here in a little bit, but bring your student ambassadors together. Show them what it is that you're going to be providing to prospective students. There's no better peer content review committee that you could put together than that group. Seek creative ideas from them that are closest to your prospective students. I'm not an 18-year-old or 17-year-old anymore. Last year I was, but not anymore. But you know, how they relate and things like that. I'm still on Facebook. That's about it. You know, how they create those ideas and how they create those interactions is really, really important. And getting your prospective students to interact with your current students is a big deal. So one thing that you really do have to have, and a lot of campuses are focusing on this now, is providing success stories and outcomes. And it's not just about the donor that donated, you know, the alumni donor that donated, you know, $5 million a week ago, or the CEO of a certain company or anything else like that. It's more about current students who are doing student-led research projects with a faculty member, or recent graduates who have graduated and who have gone on to do great things, whether it's volunteering or whether it's finding a position that they do love and that they're going to grow into over the future. Students, prospective students, need to see themselves on your campus. So anytime that you can cultivate stories, my alma mater cultivates a story called the Gold Club, graduates of the last decade. So they grab those stories and they put those out for prospective students to see, because it is real, it is authentic, and it goes from there. So you do have to have the ability to dynamically connect your current student successes with the interest of your inquiries. So as students identify themselves, or you get a name by or something like that, being able to see that they're interested in a co-curricular activity like band or the orchestra or things like that, and being able to serve them content, success stories of students who have done those things is really, really important. But personalization is key again, connecting the behavior and the interest with the content that is served. So anytime that you receive information from a prospective student, you need to be able to respond in kind with relevant, authentic information.
You know, Chris, our partners are doing some pretty cool strategies when it comes to connecting interest with stories on campus, right? Whether it's sharing student profiles or, to your point, alumni stories. Some of our partners have used strategies within our Engage, which is a component of our behavioral intelligence platform, leveraging that behavioral data to see when students, whether it's geographically right? So being able to track IP addresses of visitors coming to the site and then serving on-screen content that's related to a student story from that part of the country or that part of the world. Once we know who the student is, there are a lot of strategies that we're deploying that focus on stories related to majors, right? Or to your point, extracurricular or co-curricular activities and student stories and profiles that are served to that individual on the website that allows them to connect and see someone who's like them, right? I can see myself in this community. So there's some really cool stuff going on with all of our partners with strategies like this. But let's talk a little bit about the family.
So Heather, thanks for that. The prospective family has really become a driver in the exploration process and ultimately the enrollment process. You know, think about your current family communication plan. Do you have one? Most of us have an email or a print flow for our families. But as you review your content, consider the questions and strategies to create multi-channel connections. More and more families are on Facebook. More and more families are on Twitter. Those kinds of things, because they're following their prospective student as they engage themselves in those platforms. But do you have web content that matters to this audience? On your website, do you have a place for the family to go to look for a checklist? You know, develop a series of to-do lists. You know, my mom, you know, she's all about the to-do list, right? My wife, all about the to-do list. Me, not so much. But, you know, here's the thing I can check off, I can check off, I can check off. And you would be surprised on how much interaction you will get from a family member if they have a checklist and they're working their way through that, especially early on in the process, like sophomores and juniors, being able to take that test and stuff like that. So clear cost and financial aid information, again, needs to be accessible. Digital advertising is not just for kids. So if you're serving only content out there to students, you should be looking at different ways to do that. But again, personal connection is key.
Chris, I think we have so much great content. This last point, I think, is critical. I also feel like we've had lots and lots of conversations over the last 18 months about the importance of having not just on-campus events as we continue to open back up, but having a blend of on-campus and virtual so that your events, your community, your campus is accessible. And I think that's critical. So if you don't have a blend planned for the next 12, 24 months of both in-person and virtual, we need to make sure that you incorporate that in the strategy. Let's dive in, Chris, to counselors. The critical component of our recruitment process, the lead with our prospective students. Let's talk a little bit about how they should be communicating and what we need to be thinking about to support them.
Outstanding. One of the things that we'll jump into is making sure that, you know, you directors and VPs out there, you have to establish realistic, measurable territory goals for your counselors early on. Make sure that they have those sub funnels ready to go, so that as they begin the recruitment process, that they know and understand where they should be going as they move through their process. Each institution has a value statement. Make sure that you're always leading with your value statement about your mission and vision, but you have to have specific value statements for specific programs. Make sure that you have examples of those outcomes for the current and graduate students as well. But it's important that your admission staff is equipped with the knowledge and the materials to provide these important value statements when prompted. Training is key, making sure that they have that. And then making connections with prospects, top influencers, guidance counselors, coaches, local access folks, those people who are in the local community who have influence over prospective students about where they may go or where they may want to study for the next 4 or 5 years. So making sure that your counselors are reaching out to them and facilitating relationships with them as well. And you have to prioritize your outreach and your influences, right? And your intentions, excuse me. You have 25,000 names in your inquiry pool as an admissions counselor. How are you prioritizing? We need to help them prioritize using data analytics about who is more likely to inquire, who's more likely to apply, to make sure that those messages can get to those people so that they are being more efficient in the use of their time in the office, and that you're getting the best results that you can outside of that.
Fantastic. You know, Chris, again, our partners are able to leverage the power of the behavioral intelligence platform in a lot of different ways. We're talking about from the marketing side, right? The ability to display content or tell stories in real time with our Gen Z inquiries based on their interest, their behavior, and your stories on campus. I think with the counseling team, in order to really help them deliver the right message to the right student at the right time, we have tools that are built into the platform, Engage, and our predictive models that allow for, first, and I think most importantly, prioritization, right? I mean, regardless of what we're going to say to a Gen Z inquiry, we need to make sure that our team is supported. They understand the direction that they need to go to, using things like our engagement score, right? This is a real-time view of whether or not your prospective student is paying attention to you. We have our affinity index that looks at that longer term view of engagement and interest on behalf of the prospective students. And so our partners have used those two things. So this is just behavioral data and scoring to prioritize the lists of individuals that meet those territory goals, right, that we've put together for them, that show who from their prospective student pool is most interested and engaged today. And it helps us lessen that cold call effect, right? Or make sure that they're paying attention when we go to deliver that awesome, authentic message throughout the recruitment cycle, but particularly in those early stage moments of inquiry development. So our partners are using all kinds of scoring, our behavioral scoring, our predictive analytics in combination. So imagine if you could provide your counseling team with a list of individuals from your suspect and inquiry pool that are most likely to apply, right? So they're in the top 30% of all of your leads. These students are most likely to apply, and this subset of those are paying attention right now. In fact, yesterday, they were on the site, and here's some information that they were looking at and things that are top of mind for them. Now imagine picking up the phone and having a conversation that looks and feels a whole lot different, so we can be personalized and real with the students based on what they're needing right now.
No, it's a powerful tool. As someone who's used the tools in the past, it's unbelievable how efficient you get and the results that we get. Let's talk about student ambassadors. And as somebody, I was just doing the math, Heather, 30 years ago this August, I stepped onto a college campus for the first time, and I was a student ambassador. I gave tours, started giving tours a long, long time ago. But the tour guide has evolved into the student ambassador program now. And student ambassadors, you can take this all the way now to like they're brand ambassadors for you. So being able to leverage your student ambassador team is more than just giving tours. They should be able to utilize their digital marketing as well, whether they're posting on their Instagram or on their Twitter feeds or doing TikToks and stuff like that. It's really important that you provide as an admission staff professional development for your student ambassador team to do just more than just tours or make phone calls in the evenings. They can provide input into messaging and content and create all kinds of content that goes on your social media channels. And they're almost like a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week kind of marketing channel because it's real, it's authentic. They're doing it in real time. They're attending an art gallery opening and they're taking pictures of themselves with, some sculptures and things like that and posting it out there for you. But the big thing here is to provide that data information to your student ambassadors about what prospective students are interested in beyond the classroom. They can help create that content for you, but it's, again, about creating authentic, real, authentic content that's out there for Gen Z to consume on their time frame, when they want it, as they want it, which is all mobile and pretty much in a social setting. And then, obviously, we must be able to have a program together for that, right? So whenever you're using student ambassadors and things like that, measure everything. Measure how well the tours went. Measure how many applications they're driving. Measure how many likes and how many shares they're getting on those digital strategies. It's important that they are part of that team because they are an extension of your admissions team at that point in time. So
it's fantastic. a decade ago, I feel like the notion of a student ambassador was that they were a team of tour guides. And the ways in which we can bring these students into the fold and into our recruitment strategies, whether it is providing that access to campus and the stories within, whether it is through their social media posting, whether it is in conversation with students on the phone, via video, in person on campus, they are the real lifeblood of our campus. And so I don't know about you, Chris, but I'm totally up on the talks with the ticks. I'm a super tweeter. And yeah, Facebook is my primary platform, but every once in a while I hop into the grams. The fact that I say any of that stuff means that I should not. I should stay to my LinkedIn posts, and that is my world. But our younger students who are living in this world and have the ability to dive into life on campus and share that is pretty amazing. I think it's really important as we think about using, right, these students in their 24/7 mode of sharing life, setting true goals, right, for them to achieve, so that social media posting from our student ambassadors isn't just a thing that they're doing, but a plan that we have that we can measure and ultimately iterate on, right, as we start to see results. What are some of the results, Chris, that you have used, or some of the assessments and measures that you've used with student ambassadors impacting your recruitment strategies and your communication strategies, particularly with that top of funnel development?
Usually a lot of it had to do with when we would use them as tour guides, obviously, whenever we would have large junior visit days in the spring and things like that, we would track a student who was a rising sophomore, rising junior, rising senior through our CRM and see what that interaction was like. We would actually attach that information from a survey that we would receive back and actually attach it with whatever student was. And then that student actually, we would try and match up so that student ambassadors would be with that student for the next 2 or 3 years through the process, right? So I had a student ambassador, we hired them as a sophomore, and they were there for 3 years. And actually they stayed with 2 sets of students, sophomores and juniors, all the way until they came to campus. So they could create that relationship. And back then it was using on the phone, those kinds of things. But then we were using it in a social media aspect. We were looking to see how much extra juice we were getting from our students posting. A lot of times you're finding that if you find a really good student who is doing some really cool posting on the TikTok and on Instagram and things like that, they're starting to get followers and they're starting to create excitement on campus. And actually, sometimes it would outshine what the college was doing itself. But that's okay, because what they're posting was being measured by us. We were helping with the messaging of what they were sending and when they were sending it, and not telling them what to send, but you know what I mean, just framing it all that for them, but also sharing it again as part of the campus outreach. So it was able to put more information out to a larger group of students, both prospective and people who were deep into the application mode. So that's what we were really measuring at that point in time, and really trying to help ourselves make sure that our brand was out there as well. Brand awareness is a big part of the social networking as well.
That's fantastic. Chris, when you think about measuring these interactions, what were some of the things that you were quantifying in this social realm with your student ambassadors?
One of the things that we were trying to measure was if the interactions were taking the students to the next level, if they were helping us push through that next envelope to get to the application, to the acceptance, those kinds of things. We were trying to see if it was going to be 2 different communications, or if we were serving digital content at the same time to that student. How many times it took us to literally, I don't want to say literally touch, but touch that student's profile to get them to react, to do something, and then creating more content. It was about content creation, and it's gotten more like that as we go through. More specialized content creation for our counseling staff anyway. to be able to say to that student, okay, I see what you're doing here. Let me get you this information, those kinds of things. We took it on a very personal level. I worked at a private institution where we had the ability to do that. But we were trying to quantify how many times it took for us to move through the process and how many resources we needed to put through that, so that the following year that we would have enough resources in our budget to do so. I think that was an important part for us, is to make sure that we were dedicating ourselves into a position where we were looking at it holistically and making sure that we reviewed our performance on a regular basis, so that we were making sure that we were changing the messaging as we went through. We were changing where we needed to be within the process of that particular class, and then getting started on the next class as well.
Sure. Yeah. We've talked about our inquiries, right? The Gen Zers and what they're thinking about, what they need, what they demand, right? In the recruitment process, in the interaction between themselves and institutions. We've talked about the role of counselors, right? Prep that we need to do every cycle, the role of student ambassadors, the possibilities there to take those students and fully integrate them into our recruitment strategies. I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the fact that not only does it take many different individuals to interact with that prospective students, but it takes many channels to make sure that we surround those prospective students, those inquiries, those suspects at the top of our funnel, to provide them with everything that they need as they're researching, as they're discovering, as they're deciding. In this particular graphic, this is a representation of a single student at one of our partners. It has been de-identified and renamed as Jared, but this gives you a sense of the many touch points throughout the recruitment cycle that happen. And while we may all be doing this on our campus, I think that it's really important for us to assess whether or not they're working and how it impacts the student's perception, right, of the messages that are being delivered, the experiences that they're having. And if you can't see those interactions, if you can't measure those interactions, then how do you know that it matters or that it counts? And so I think that's the really important part here with Jared. And as we think about how institutions are leveraging this data, this behavioral interaction, knowing how and when to use a counselor versus a student ambassador versus a digital ad versus an email, the behavioral intelligence platform truly does give us access to all of that information in an actionable manner. So Engage, which is our marketing automation tool, and you've heard a lot of stories, a lot of connection points about how to take the behavior and interactions of your prospective inquiries, connect their behavior to content to make it relevant, authentic, and timely based on when they want it within your web environment, in addition to our predictive modeling. So Apply, Aid, and Enroll gives a sense of what all those prospective students are doing and what they may be doing in the future and how you can allocate resources to support all of them. That powers all of our marketing solutions, right? That multi-channel, holistic view and touch point plan for each individual prospective student. For us, those wonderful things, the platform, our marketing solutions, are all managed for our partners by a team of experts. So we have enrollment managers, we have marketers, we have data scientists, analysts, advertisers, content creators, all the creatives to work side by side with our partners to be able to help them get done the incredible work that you all do every day. So Chris, we're coming up, oh my gosh, it's gone so fast. We're coming up on the end. And I just want to summarize all of the great information that you shared with the crew today. First and foremost, we've talked about Gen Zs, right? They are inquiries that demand authentic digital interaction. And so we need to be thinking about how to create communication plans and messaging that are transparent, personalized, and responsive. If we do that, we can maximize connection and conversion down the funnel. The second is we talked a lot about our counselors, right? Those that are in our front line, the relationship builders, the deal winners, and ensure that we are prioritizing their outreach to align with our recruitment goals. So that's everything from segmentation to volume. And so we need to make sure that our counselor communications reflect our value propositions and are relevant to not just those Gen Z inquiries, but also their families and everyone that surrounds them in the decision-making process. And last, we talked about those student ambassadors. It makes me so excited when we had these conversations, Chris, in prepping for this conversation. If we can leverage those student ambassadors to bring peer-to-peer interactions and that true, authentic voice to our recruitment campaigns. The importance is that although it is authentic and organic, it has to be planned and measured throughout the recruitment cycle. So those are just a couple of the takeaways that we have for today. I think we're ready, Emma, to move to questions. If we have a couple of minutes, I'm sorry, I get so excited about telling stories. If you want to come back
Hello,
in.
I'm back again. Hey, everyone. So we do have a couple minutes. It looks like we have 3 minutes till the end of this presentation today. So I will go through a couple of the questions that have been submitted. Now, Heather and Chris, are you ready to answer some questions?
Bring it.
Do it.
Okay, that's what I like to hear. So one of the first ones that I got, and I'm going to kind of just ping off your comment earlier, Heather, about ambassadors. We're going to take it back to that slide. We have one question in particular. Who have you seen coordinating those social ambassadors? Are schools creating a new position or an add-on to a current position?
That's a fantastic question. Chris, you want to take it?
Sure. It depends on your resources on your campus, right? I think one of the things that you need to make sure, though, is that whoever's in charge of your marketing and your admissions marketing, because there's two different things, right? So there's college marketing, university marketing, and then there's usually a marketing concept within the admissions office, enrollment office, that they're in congruence, that they work together on messaging. And that they're working together on making sure that the brand is taken care of and that the messaging that's going out fits everything that they're trying to accomplish within the plan at that point in time. But there's a lot of energy behind it. Usually your younger admissions counselors want to get involved because they're still doing the TikToks and all that other stuff because they just graduated. But making sure that you have somebody that's there that is from the marketing department that understands how it works, and then also somebody from the admissions side to make sure that the messaging is correct.
I've seen them tucked under student ambassador programs, tucked under admissions, under an assistant director, maybe who's working with events when they're really event focused. I've seen student ambassadors almost shared resourced with a social media manager over in marketing to be able to connect those dots. And be a resource for the marketing team too. But to Chris's point, just kind of depends on resources. I'm super pumped to be able to see more people investing in this. I think this is going to be an exciting evolution as we continue to go.
Well, think about it too, and I'll just add this too. Think about the experience that the student is getting, right? It's not just about what we're getting out of it as enrollment managers, but the student is getting experience on marketing and planning, measurement themselves. I mean, they're going to become project managers themselves just by working in your office. So it's a great opportunity.
Emma, I don't know, do we have time for any more? Oh my gosh, we're so long-winded.
So we just got a couple more in while you all were answering this question. So let's do one more and then I'll wrap it up from there. And of course, anyone that does submit today, I will pass along your questions to both Chris and Heather, and they will follow up with you individually. So if you still have a question, please go ahead and submit it while they're answering this last one, and we'll go from there. So here's another question that we have. I'd love to hear an example of how we could have an ambassador interaction that feels authentic and organic while also being a planned part of a communication flow.
Well, that was loaded and exactly what I said.
Putting you on the spot.
I know. I think, when I think about it, and Chris, I'll be brief, is just like we plan for digital advertising campaigns, that we plan for email marketing at particular stages of the funnel, that we should plan for shared content. I think that's different than our student ambassadors being at events and just sharing life. But I think that there's a moment where we can boost content, where we can share content, and instead of it being an admissions staff person that does so, that it can be planned to be a student ambassador. And I think the authentic part is that they're a student at the institution, right? Even if it is admissions, recruitment, marketing, they can still react within it and provide that real world connection. That's my gut. I don't know, Chris, anything different?
Not really. I think to your point, how they're keeping everything within the enrollment funnel as the students are moving through the funnel during the year. I think that what the authentic piece is that when you ask the student why they applied to your institution and they create a post based upon why they applied or why they enrolled or why they came to visit campus the first time or their impressions, that's the authentic piece of it, because they're going to tell their side of the story. They're going to tell why and what happened, those kinds of things. So that's the authentic piece of it, but keeping it under the umbrella of where you are in the enrollment cycle is an important piece.
I often refer to decision-making support as guided discovery. Perhaps this is just structured authenticity.
Yes.
What do you think about that, Emma? You're a marketer.
I would agree. Anything you say, Heather, I'll agree to. Just kidding. Well, that is all the time that we have for questions today. So once again, thank you all so much. You're a great audience. We love getting questions. So I'm just going to throw it out there one more time. If you have anything else for us, please, please, please go ahead to that question box and submit something that I can get over to Heather and Chris. And at this point, I am going to say goodbye for the day. You all did a great job, and I will wrap things up from here.
Awesome. Thanks, gang. Have a great day. We'll see you next
time.
Good luck,
everybody. Take care.
Okay, so we are at the end of our session today, and we really appreciate you all joining us. For all those that did attend and those that did register, we will be sending a recording out tomorrow. So if you want to watch this again and dissect it a little bit more, or you want to share with a coworker, just expect to get that by sometime tomorrow afternoon. That is it from us. That is the end of our Capture Cast. Have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.